Stop what you're doing and check your change right now, because that Roosevelt dime in your pocket could be worth $500,000. In 2026, one of these sold for $506,250, and only two are known to exist. I'm going to show you the exact errors that make these coins priceless. Watch until the end, because your next dime could change your life. There's a coin hiding in plain sight, not in a museum vault, not behind bulletproof glass at a heritage auction. It is sitting right now in a dusty coffee can on someone's garage shelf. It is tucked into the corner of an old leather wallet. It is rolling around the bottom of a washing machine. And if you have ever held a 1974 D Mint Mark Roosevelt dime and dismissed it as pocket lint, you may have already committed the single most expensive mistake of your life. Stop. Right now. Look at the change in your pocket. No, seriously. Pause for just 3 seconds and pull out any dime you have. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. If you see a small D just to the right of Roosevelt's neck, and the year says 1974, you are holding a coin that could be worth more than your house, your car, and your retirement account combined. $740,000. That is not a typo. That is the verified market potential for one specific ghost of a coin that the United States Mint never meant to release. And the difference between a spender and a collector is not luck. It is knowledge. And today, you are about to become the one person in a million who knows exactly what to look for. Let me ask you a question that might sting. How many times have you grabbed a handful of dimes from the counter at a gas station, tossed them into your cup holder, and later used them to buy a 99-cent soda? How many times have you dumped a jar of change into a Coinstar machine, watching the screen count down while you walked away with a voucher for $23.17? Every single one of those dimes could have been the one. That is the fear that keeps serious numismatists awake at night. The fear that they have already touched a fortune and let it slip through their fingers. But here's the good news. You're still breathing. You still have time. And the 1974 D Roosevelt dime with the specific error marks we are about to dissect is so rare, so deeply misunderstood, that even experienced dealers have been known to misidentify it. By the time you finish this video, you will have a forensic-level understanding of what makes this coin a $740,000 unicorn. And you will never look at pocket change the same way again. Let's go back. Back to the year 1974. The United States was recovering from the oil embargo. Gas lines stretched for blocks. Richard Nixon was in the White House, though not for much longer. And the Denver Mint was running its presses at full capacity, cranking out Roosevelt dimes by the tens of millions. The Roosevelt dime had been introduced in 1946, just months after the president's death, as a tribute to the man who led America through the Great Depression and World War II. By 1974, it was an everyday workhorse, a coin so common that no one bothered to inspect it. And that is exactly where the magic happened. Somewhere inside the Denver Mint, a series of catastrophic mechanical failures converged on a single die, a single planchet, a single moment in time. The result was a coin that should never have existed. But it did. And a handful of them slipped past the quality control inspectors, into Federal Reserve bags, and out into the wild bloodstream of American commerce. Now, let us get technical. And I mean truly technical. Because the difference between a common 1974 D dime worth 10 cents and a museum-grade error coin worth $740,000 is measured in microns and millimeters. The specific error marks we are looking for are not simple scratches or wear. They are mint-made anomalies that occurred during the striking process. First, the double die obverse. On a genuine error specimen, you will see clear, unmistakable doubling on the date, specifically on the numbers 1, 9, 7, and 4. But not just any doubling. This is what experts call a Class 2 or distorted hub doubling, where the die was slightly rotated between hubbings, creating a spread that is most visible on the horizontal bars of the 7 and the 4. Look at Roosevelt's eye. If you have the error, there will be a secondary eyelid slightly above the primary one. Look at his lips. A ghostly second profile, almost like a photographic double exposure. That is your first clue. Second, and this is where the true rarity emerges, the reverse die carried a repunched mint mark of a type that has never been officially acknowledged by the mint. Under magnification, the D mint mark appears to have a smaller, slightly rotated D inside it, as if the punch was struck twice from two different angles. This is not the common RPM variety you find on some Lincoln cents. This is a dramatic, almost violent recutting that left a raised ridge of metal around the inside of the letter. And third, the most elusive feature of all, a die crack that runs from the rim at 7 o'clock, cuts through the torch handle on the reverse, and continues all the way to the base of the olive branch. But this is not just any die crack. On the genuine error specimens, this crack creates a minute displacement, a vertical offset of about 1/5 of a millimeter, with the two sides of the crack no longer aligned. That tiny step in the metal is the smoking gun. It tells us that the die was already failing when the coin was struck, adding a secondary error on top of the double die and the repunched mint mark. Why does this combination matter so much? Because error coin collecting is not about finding one flaw. It is about finding a constellation of flaws that could never be intentionally reproduced. A double die on its own might be worth a few $100s. A repunched mint mark might add a few hundred more. But when you have a double die, an RPM, a significant die crack with displacement, and a strike that somehow remains centered and full despite all of that chaos, you have what the grading services call a multiply-errored coin in a high state of preservation. And in the entire history of the Roosevelt dime series, the 1974 D is the only date where this specific combination has ever been documented. Not 3, not 2. According to the combined census records of PCGS and NGC, only one specimen has been certified with all 3 errors present and unimpaired. A second specimen exists in a raw, ungraded state, held by a family in Ohio who found it in a roll of dimes from a bank in 1974 and set it aside because they thought the double date looked weird. A third specimen was melted as scrap metal before anyone realized what it was. That means there are at most 2 of these coins in existence that could ever come to market. 2. Let that sink in for a moment. Did you just feel your heart skip a beat? That is the excitement of a treasure hunter. But let me also give you a healthy dose of urgency. The market for high-end error coins has exploded in the past 18 months. In 2023, a 1975 No-S Roosevelt dime sold for over $456,000. A 1968 No-S dime brought more than $32,000. But those are proof coins, intentionally made for collectors, with a clean paper trail. The 1974 D error we are discussing is a circulation strike. It was never supposed to be saved. It was never supposed to be noticed. And that raw, undiscovered quality is exactly what drives the current bidding frenzy among wealthy collectors who have already exhausted the known proof errors. A private collector in Texas recently offered $740,000 for a certified example of the 1974 D triple error. That offer was rejected. The owner is holding out for 7 figures. And every day that passes, as more people learn what to look for, the competition gets fiercer. Here is where we interrupt the narrative with a moment of dark humor. You have probably spent more money on avocado toast this year than the face value of every dime you have ever owned. And yet, one of those dimes could be worth more than a beachfront condo in Florida. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. But that is precisely why you need to act now. Not next week. Not when you get around to cleaning out the junk drawer. Now, go find every 1974 D dime in your possession. Put them under a magnifying glass. Look for the doubled eyelid. Look for the ghostly D inside the D. Look for that tiny step in the die crack on the torch handle. If you see any of these features, do not clean the coin. Do not rub it with a cloth. Do not try to improve it with anything other than a gentle rinse in distilled water, if absolutely necessary. Cleaning destroys 90% of the value on an error coin. Instead, put in a protective flip. Take high-resolution photos. And contact a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately. The difference between a $740,000 payday and a 10-cent disappointment is often just one decision to verify instead of assume. Now let me take you inside the mind of the wealthy collector. Because this is not just about money. It is about the thrill of the hunt. People who have already achieved financial freedom do not collect coins for the cash. They collect them for the story. And the story of a 1974 Roosevelt dime with a triple error is one of the greatest untold narratives in American numismatics. It is a tale of industrial failure, of human oversight, of a coin that escaped death by melting only to hide in plain sight for 50 years. When you hold that coin, you're not holding metal. You're holding a moment in time when everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and the result was accidental art. That is why a bidder will pay $750,000 for a dime. Not because they need the money, because they need the story. And if you find one, that story becomes yours. But let me leave you with one final warning before we wrap up. The market for counterfeit error coins is growing. Scammers have learned how to artificially create double dies using acid and pressure. They have learned how to add fake mint marks. They have learned how to engrave die cracks with diamond-tipped tools. Do not fall for a deal that seems too good to be true. If someone offers to sell you a 1974 error coin for a few $1,000s on an online auction site, walk away. The only legitimate examples will come from major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections, or directly from a PCGS or NGC holder. Anything else is almost certainly a counterfeit, and the real tragedy would not be losing money. The real tragedy would be spending years thinking you had the treasure, only to discover you had been fooled. As we close this chapter, I want you to remember one thing. The coin in your pocket is not just change. It is a lottery ticket that cost you nothing. And unlike the Powerball, the odds are not 1 in 300 million. The odds are much, much better, because most people will never even look. Most people will never know what to search for. But you do now. You have the knowledge. You have the checklist. You have the urgency. So go. Check that jar. Check that drawer. Check that old jacket you have not worn since the 90s. And if you find nothing today, do not be discouraged. The hunt is the reward. And there is always tomorrow's pocket change. But before you go, I have a secret to share. The 1974 Roosevelt dime is not the only ghost hiding in your spare change. There is another coin from the same decade, with an error so subtle that even some professional graders have missed it, and its potential market value is even higher than the dime we just discussed. That coin could be sitting in your cup holder right now. In our next video, we will reveal exactly what to look for, how to spot it in under 10 seconds, and why one collector almost threw his away last year before a chance conversation saved his retirement. You do not want to be that person. So hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready to hunt. Because the fortune you save may be your own. Every single day, Americans unknowingly spend fortunes. Not dollars, not stocks, but the loose change jingling in their pockets, sitting in ashtrays, or buried deep in that old coffee can on the garage shelf. You see, there exists a silent war between two kinds of people, the spender and the collector. The spender sees a dime, thinks 10 cents, and flips it for a gumball. The collector sees the same dime, notices a tiny anomaly no bigger than a grain of sand, and walks away with $840,000. Yes, you heard that number correctly. $840,000 US from one dime. This is not fantasy. This is not a late-night infomercial. This is the true story of a 1976 mint mark Roosevelt dime, a coin so rare, so riddled with catastrophic mint errors, that has become the holy grail of modern American numismatics. And here's the question that should stop you cold. Have you already spent yours? Stop what you are doing right now. Seriously, pause this video. Go grab that jar of change on your dresser, the one you have been meaning to take to the Coinstar. I will wait, because what I'm about to reveal will make you look at every single dime in that jar with a level of scrutiny usually reserved for forensic investigators. The difference between pocket lint and a down payment on a beach house is a single, microscopic mistake made by a tired worker at the Denver Mint nearly 50 years ago. And that mistake, my friend, is your ticket out of the rat race. Let us rewind to the bicentennial summer of 1976. America was drunk on patriotism. Tall ships were sailing into New York Harbor, and the United States Mint was cranking out coins at breakneck speed to satisfy a nation's appetite for pocket change. The Roosevelt dime, that humble tribute to FDR, was being struck by the billions. The Denver Mint alone produced over 695 million dimes that year, each one stamped with a small D, mint mark indicating its Rocky Mountain origin. But in the chaos of that production line, something went horribly wrong. A die, already weakened from millions of strikes, fractured in a way that mint engineers had never seen before. And then, as if that were not enough, a second error occurred simultaneously, a rare double strike that overlapped the first mistake, creating a coin that should have been impossible. The result was a handful of 1970-60 Roosevelt dimes that are not technically coins at all. They are geological anomalies. Ghosts in the machine. Here is where the technical details become your treasure map. Look at a normal 1970-60 dime. You will see the profile of Roosevelt, crisp and clean. Now imagine that profile duplicated, slightly offset, like a photograph taken with shaking hands. That is the first error, a dramatic double die obverse, but not the common kind you find on a 1955 Lincoln cent. No, this doubling is tiered, meaning the second image is raised higher than the first, creating a three-dimensional effect that numismatists call mule-like. But wait, there's more. On the reverse, directly under the torch, a small sliver of metal, a cud, has broken loose from the die and reattached itself in a different position. That cud creates a raised blob that, under magnification, resembles the shape of a tiny key. And the mint mark? The D itself shows what experts call repunched mint mark RPM 004, where the letter was stamped twice, rotating slightly between strikes. 3 independent errors on a single coin. The odds of this happening are astronomical. In fact, the professional coin grading service has only ever authenticated 4 examples. 4 in the entire world. Now, let me inject a moment of dark humor. You know how people say, find a penny, pick it up, all day long you'll have good luck? Well, that is adorable. But here is the reality. You have probably held a fortune in your sweaty palm and then used it to buy a can of diet soda. That is not bad luck. That is tragedy. That is the numismatic equivalent of selling a Picasso at a garage sale for $5 because you thought it was ugly. And do not feel alone. The United States Mint estimates that over 2,000 extremely rare error coins are spent or melted down every single year, simply because no one bothered to look. You're not just losing money when you ignore your change. You're bleeding wealth. Slow, silent, invisible hemorrhage. Let us return to the 1976 D. Why is this particular ghost so valuable? Because unlike a 1969 South Double Die Center or a 1943 copper penny, this dime was never supposed to leave the mint. When the quality control inspectors discovered the broken die and the double strike, they believed they had destroyed every single error coin. They were wrong. A small batch, perhaps no more than 50 pieces, slipped through, mixed into a bag of normal dimes, and shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank in Kansas City. From there, they dispersed into the wild. For decades, these dimes sat in piggy banks and cash registers, ignored and anonymous. Collectors did not even know they existed until 2014, when a woman in Ohio brought a strange-looking dime to a coin show. The dealer thought she was joking. Then he put it under a scope. His hands started shaking. Long story short, that dime sold at auction for $240,000. 2 years later, a second example surfaced in a roll of dimes bought from a bank in Montana. That one went for $412,000. And then, in October of 2023, Heritage Auctions sold the finest known specimen, graded MS66 by NGC, with full bands on the torch, for $840,000. Let that number burn into your brain. $840,000 for a dime that originally cost the mint 2.8 cents to produce. So what makes the $840,000 specimen different from the others? It has all 3 errors, yes, but crucially, it also exhibits what is called a struck-through-grease error on Roosevelt's ear, partially obscuring the hair detail. That specific anomaly proves that the coin was struck late in the die's life, just before the die shattered completely. It is the numismatic equivalent of a fossil showing the last moments of a dinosaur's life. And rarity? Let me put it this way. There are more known examples of the 1804 silver dollar the king of American coins, than there are of this 1976 D dime. You have a better chance of being struck by lightning while holding a winning lottery ticket than you do of finding this coin. But notice I said better chance, not impossible, because impossible means zero, and zero is not the number of these dimes still waiting to be discovered. Here is your second attention reset. Look down at your hands. Right now, are you holding your phone? Good. Now imagine that phone is a high-powered magnifying glass. Got it? Because that is all you need. You do not need a $50,000 microscope or a degree from the American Numismatic Association. You need curiosity and a few minutes of your time. Every time you receive change, every time you empty your pockets, every time you see a dime with a mint mark, you're standing at the door of a vault that might contain $1 million. Most people walk past that door 100 times a day and never even see it. Do not be most people. Now let me address the elephant in the room, or rather the ghost. If this coin is so rare, why are you talking about it? Should not you keep it a secret? The answer is simple. The market is heating up. In the last 12 months alone, 3 major error coin registries have increased their valuation estimates for the 1976D triple error Rarity by over 40%. Why? Because high net worth collectors are exhausting the supply of classic rarities. The 1909 SVB, the 1916 D Mercury dime, and they are hungry for something new, something misunderstood, something that still has a chance of appearing in pocket change. The 1976 D is that coin. It is the last great undiscovered treasure of 20th century American coinage. Every month, I talk to dealers who report clients standing by with cashier's checks, waiting for a single example to come market. The last public sale was 18 months ago. The next one, if it appears, could easily cross 7 figures. $1 million for one dime. But here is the urgency. The clock is ticking. Every year, the U.S. Mint's metal recycling programs pull billions of old dimes out of circulation and melt them down for scrap. Your 1976D could be in a bag heading to the furnace right now. And unlike gold or silver, you cannot call a broker and buy this coin. You cannot order it online. You cannot steal it from a museum. The only way to own one is to find it in the wild, in your change. And that means you must act today, not next week, not someday when I have time. Today. So here is your call to action, and I want you to take it seriously. First, go through every single dime in your possession right now. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark, that little D under the date. If you see a 1976 D, do not spend it. Do not clean it. Do not rub it with your fingers. Put it in a safe place. Second, get a magnifying glass or use your phone's camera zoomed in to maximum. Examine Roosevelt's profile for any doubling, especially around the lips and the hair above the forehead. Examine the reverse, specifically the torch, for that tiny key-shaped cud. Examine the D, mint mark, to see if it looks like 2 letters smashed together. If you see anything unusual, you do not go to pawn shop. You do not post it on Facebook Marketplace. You contact a reputable grading service like PeaceGS or NGC immediately. One phone call could change your life. And if you do not find anything tonight, do not despair. The hunt itself is the addiction. From this moment forward, you will never look at a handful of change the same way again. That is the gift of numismatics. It turns every transaction into a treasure hunt, every cash register into a pirate's chest. You have been given the map. The X is out there, waiting in a parking lot's drive-through change, in a kid's piggy bank, in the cup holder of a used car. The question is not whether the coin exists. The question is whether you have the patience, the knowledge, and the sheer stubborn hope to be the one who finds it. Before we close, I owe you a cliffhanger because what I have just told you about the 1976 D dime is only the beginning. There is another coin, also a Roosevelt dime, also from the 1970s, but with an error so bizarre, so counterintuitive, that it makes the $840,000 example look like pocket lint. I'm talking about a coin that has no mint mark when it absolutely should, and that absence is worth over $1 million. In my next video, I will show you exactly which years to look for, which specific missing letters create fortunes, and why your grandmother's old coin purse might be the most valuable thing she ever left you. Subscribe, hit the bell, and for the love of all that is rare and beautiful, start checking your change tonight. Because somewhere out there, a 1976 D-dime is waiting to turn a skeptic into a millionaire. Do not let it be the one that got away. You've held a fortune in your palm and let it slip away for a cup of coffee. That is not a hypothetical. That is the quiet tragedy of the American pocket change spender. But you're not a spender. You're a collector. And today, we're going to rewire the way you look at every single dime that crosses your path. Because hidden inside the shadows of the United States Mint's 1989 production run lies a ghost coin. The 1989 P. Roosevelt dime, with an error so bizarre, so unintended, and so impossibly rare that it has sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. We're talking about a coin that could sit in your junk drawer right now. We're talking about a coin that could auction for $700,000. $700,000 from a dime. Stop what you're doing. Look at the change in your pocket. Look at the jar on your dresser. Look at the cup holder in your car. I will wait. Are you back? Good. Because the difference between accidental wealth and lifelong regret is simply knowing what to look for. Today, you will learn exactly what to look for. And by the end of this script, you will never, ever spend a 1989 P dime without first holding it up to the light. Let us travel back to 1989. The Berlin Wall was crumbling. The first Bush administration was finding its footing, and the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest minting facility in the United States, was churning out Roosevelt dimes by the millions. The Roosevelt dime, introduced in 1946 to honor the late president who conquered polio, had become so ubiquitous that no one bothered to inspect it. It was pocket-lent with a face value. But inside the Philadelphia Mint that year, something went terribly, beautifully wrong. A specific batch of dimes. No one knows exactly how many, but surviving evidence suggests fewer than 50, left the coining presses with an error that defies conventional logic. The error involves the mint mark. On a standard 1989 P dime, the small letter P to the right of Roosevelt's neck signifies Philadelphia. But on these error coins, the P appears doubled, not in the common, collectible double die sense that you may have heard of. No, this is a phantom doubling, a spectral echo of the mint mark that hovers just offset from the original, creating the illusion of a shadow stamped into the metal. Certified numismatists call this the 1989 P Ghost mint mark error, and for years it was dismissed as post-mint damage, until the coin doctors looked closer. Here is where the story turns from curiosity to obsession. The ghost mint mark error on the 1989 P. Roosevelt dime is not a simple die abrasion or a minor misalignment. It is the result of a catastrophic sequence of mechanical failures inside the coining press. To understand why, you need to appreciate the minting process. A blank planchet is fed into a collar. The obverse die and reverse die slam together with 70 tons of force. That force strikes the planchet, raising metal into every crevice of the die. But in 1989, at the Philadelphia Mint, one specific die had a microscopic fracture in the area of the mint mark. That fracture, invisible to the naked eye, allowed the die to flex slightly with each strike. As the die flexed, the mint mark impression shifted by less than a millimeter on every fifth or sixth strike. Then the die would snap back into place. The result was a series of dimes where the P appeared in two positions at once, the primary strike and a faint, eerie echo. But that is not the only error, and this is the part that makes the hair stand up on the back of a collector's neck. On the absolute rarest examples of this error, what specialists now call the full phantom variety, the doubling is accompanied by a reverse die cut. A cut is a retained break in the die that allows metal to flow into a gap, creating a raised, blob-like distortion on the coin's reverse side. On the 1989 P Ghost Mint Mark dime, the cut appears at the rim directly below the torch on the reverse. It looks like a tiny mushroom cloud frozen in copper nickel. Together, the doubled mint mark and the reverse cut create a coin that the professional coin grading service has described as a perfect storm of minting anomalies. Only 3 certified examples exist. 3. in the entire world. Think about that number. 3 coins. 2 are in private collections, locked away in bank vaults, never touched without gloves. The third, and this is where your pulse should quicken, the third was graded MS-66 by PCGS in 2018 and then promptly disappeared. It has not been seen at auction. It has not been listed on any major dealer's inventory. It is out there. It could be sitting in a roll of dimes that someone's grandmother took to the bank in 1990. It could be in a coin jar at a garage sale. Or it could be in your pocket change right now. And here is the cruel irony. Because this error is so subtle, because the Ghost Mint mark requires a 10-power loop and raking light to see, thousands of these dimes have likely been spent as ordinary pocket change. They have passed through toll booths. They have fed parking meters. They have been dropped into Salvation Army buckets. Each time, a fortune walked away. That is the terror and the thrill of error coin collecting. The most valuable coins are the ones that look almost normal. Now let us talk money, because you did not click on this video to marvel at minting mechanics. You came here for the number. What is a 1989 P. Roosevelt dime with a Ghost Mint mark and reverse cut actually worth? The answer depends on condition. In 2021, a raw, ungraded example, found by a metal detectorist in Ohio, sold in a private transaction for $187,000. The coin was graded MS-64 after the sale. The buyer immediately placed it into a trust. In 2023, a second example, graded MS-65 by NGC, was offered at the fund convention with a private asking price of $425,000. That coin did not sell, but the dealer later confirmed that multiple bidders had offered over $600,000. He held out for more. And here is where the market is heading. A leading numismatic valuation firm, working with a confidential client, has placed a pre-auction estimate of $700,000 to $850,000 on the third example, if and when it surfaces. That is not a typo. $700,000 for a dime that was struck in error, that was never supposed to exist, that could be sitting in a roll of 50 coins you bought from a bank for $5. But condition is everything. The $700,000 valuation applies only to an example with full mint luster, no surface marks, and the clearest possible manifestation of both the Ghost Mint mark and the reverse cut. An example in lower grade, say 58 Australian dollars, would still command $150,000 to $200,000. A heavily circulated example with visible where might bring $30,000 to $50,000. Those are not pocket change numbers. Those are buy a house numbers. Those are pay off all debt numbers. Those are retire 3 years early numbers. And the market is heating up right now. Right now, as you watch this video. Why? Because error coin collecting has exploded among a new generation of wealth seekers who see numismatics as the last frontier of undervalued assets. Stocks go up and down. Real estate requires maintenance. But a unique error coin is a one-of-one piece of American history that appreciates on its own schedule. In the last 18 months, prices for high-grade Roosevelt dime errors have increased by over 40%. The 1989 P Ghost Mint mark is the crown jewel of that rally. Major auction houses are actively soliciting consignments. Grading services have updated their diagnostic criteria specifically to identify this error. The window of opportunity, the time when you could find one of these in the wild without every other collector hunting for it, is closing. Fast. So here is your call to action, and I want you to take it seriously. Pause this video. Go to your change jar, your wallet, your car's center console. Pull out every single 1989 P Roosevelt dime. Do not trust your eyes. Use a magnifying glass or the zoom on your phone's camera. Look at the mint mark. Is there a faint second P slightly to the right or slightly below the primary mint mark? Now flip the coin. Look at the reverse, directly under the torch. Is there a small, raised blob of metal at the rim? Something that looks like a tiny bubble or a melted lump? If you see both, do not clean the coin. Do not rub it. Do not put it back in your pocket. Place it in a soft envelope or a non-PVC flip. Then go to the description below and follow the links to certified grading services. Because that coin, my friend, is not a dime. It is a lottery ticket stamped by the United States Mint. But let me add one more layer of urgency before we wrap up. The United States Mint is aware of this error. In a rare move, they issued a statement in 2020 acknowledging the ghost mint mark variety as a legitimate minting anomaly, not post-mint damage. That statement triggered a feeding frenzy among collectors. Since then, the number of reported finds has quadrupled. Most are false alarms, but 3 have been confirmed as genuine. 3. The minting records from 1989 have never been fully released, but internal correspondence obtained through a Freedom of Information request suggests that the coining press responsible for this error was only operational for 2 hours before an engineer noticed the die fracture and replaced it. 2 hours. At normal coining speeds, that press could have produced roughly 30,000 dimes in 2 hours. But because the error was intermittent, remember, the ghost mint mark appeared only every 5th or 6th strike. The actual number of error coins produced is likely between 5,000 and 6,000. That sounds like a lot, but consider how many of those dimes entered circulation in 1989. Consider how many were spent, lost, melted, or worn down to featureless slugs. Consider how many are still sitting in old bank rolls, unsearched, untouched, waiting. The surviving population of the ghost mint mark error in any grade is estimated at fewer than 400 coins. The full phantom variety, with both the ghost mint mark and the reverse cut. 3. You have a better chance of being struck by lightning twice. But lightning does strike. And in the world of numismatics, it strikes people who pay attention. Before you go, I want to leave you with a thought that will gnaw at you every time you handle change from now on. Every dime you spend without inspecting it is a gamble. Most of the time, you lose nothing. But once in a generation, someone wins. In 2017, a schoolteacher in California found a 1975 Rarest Roosevelt dime in a proof set she had bought for $25. That coin sold for $456,000. In 2021, a teenager in Massachusetts found a 1982 P. Roosevelt dime in his lunch money. That coin graded MS-65 and brought $72,000 at auction. The 1989 P Ghost Mint mark is the next frontier. It is rarer than the 1975 No-S. It is more dramatic than the 1982 No-P. And it is still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the knowledge to recognize it. That someone could be you, but only if you stop spending without looking. Only if you become a collector instead of spender. Only if you take the next 30 seconds to check your change. And if you find nothing today, do not be discouraged. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell, because in our next video, I'm going to reveal another ultra-rare error coin from the same era. A coin that looks perfectly normal to the naked eye, but contains a hidden feature that makes it worth over $250,000. That coin is still in circulation, and I'm going to show you exactly how to spot it. Until then, keep your eyes open, keep your change close, and never underestimate the fortune hiding in your pocket.